Hello, everybody. I recently have hit the 200 subscriber milestone, and generally, I've been blowing up. Like, ever since I made the video about the Skylander news with Microsoft, I have just been blowing up. Like, it's crazy, and I have to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. It's legitimately incredible. And, like, 44 likes on that video and almost 600 views at the time of recording. I cannot express my true happiness at this moment, and just thank everybody a ton for all this. Truly wonderful. Anyway, I know this is relatively basic, but for my 200 subscriber special, I want to give my definitive ranking of all six of the mainline Skylanders games. You see, I just edited a tier maker, tier list, to suit our needs very well right here. Anyway, let's get on into it. For my number 6 spot, Imaginators. Look, I love... Oh, wait. Quick disclaimer, by the way. You respect my opinions, I respect yours. And I also want you guys to know that I do not dislike a single Skylanders game, even my number 6. I still love Imaginators to death. Just not as much as the other ones, you know? Still an incredible game I enjoy playing all the time. Anyway, Imaginators. It has one of the most, not creative, but still best executed gimmicks of them all. The ability to create your own Skylander, how incredible is that? Not to mention, even though the levels might have boring themes and they might be very short, they're still fun to play through. And the story is stupid, but it's just stupid. It's just so stupid that it has its own kind of little bit of charm from being so stupid. Just not really taking itself seriously. But that makes it good in its own little way. Not to mention how that even though that it was rushed, I still think for what it was worth, it was a really good and solid game overall. And it's my least favorite game, but I still love it to the bottom of my heart and back. I enjoy Imaginators a ton every time I play. And I really don't have much more to say about it, but the reason I put it in 6th is all the reasons most people dislike it. Even though that it has so much good about it, it was rushed in the end. There was only 10 mainline levels, and they tried to make up for it with a ton of filler stuff like the cake missions and doing those little academy stages. Not to mention that they made it so you can't reset creation crystals, which are just one of the most greediest things Activision's ever done with the series. But after all that, I still love Imaginators, and it is something... It is a very good game that I enjoy a ton. Next up, number 5. Hot tricked you. It's Spyro's Adventure. Spyro's Adventure, the game that started it all. The game that had one of the best casts, one of the most memorable casts at the very least, and the game that introduced you to Skylands. Spyro's Adventure is a wonderful game full of so much personality and charm. All the NPCs, except for Diggs, are awesome. And while some of them might be more bland than others, each of them brings something new to the table. And not to mention, even though the level themes can get a little repetitive, I don't think that it gets too bad. And I still can enjoy the game even with that. Not to mention that the heroic challenges were such an interesting thing and added a lot of better reasons to buy Skylanders on top of the new gameplay. Not to mention, each Skylander feels distinct and unique. All of them feel like they have their own part of Skylands. Not to mention, the gibberish is just awesome. It really tries to introduce you to the cultures of Skylands. Like, they speak English, but they also speak their native languages from where they're from. That's just wonderful. And not to mention, I keep saying, I'm saying not to mention a lot, aren't I? And another reason why it probably isn't higher is because I didn't start with Spyro's Adventure, so I don't have the same nostalgia for it that some people do. I actually got it after Imaginators was already out, and I still love it. And even though Spyro's Adventure was more basic because it was the first game introducing a bunch of new concepts and ideas that would eventually carry the Skylanders franchise to be what it is today, it is still a blast, and I love to play through it all the time. Anyway, here is our next one. Tricked ya. Superchargers is my fourth. You know, honestly, I was going to put Superchargers in fifth and SSA in fourth. But after thinking it over, Superchargers is just too good. I love Superchargers a ton. It's so well made, and it's got so much character put into it. Like, each one of the levels feels distinct, unique, and most of all, awesome. Everything is so beautiful in the game, and the story is absolutely incredible. It brings a feeling that no other game can replicate. You feel defeated, you feel lost, but slowly you manage to take back what was yours all along, and it is just an experience that I can't even put into words. And while I personally still think the vehicle sections held it back from being higher on this list, the vehicle sections in their own right are still awesome. And some of the sky sections are especially, I always remember the one in Gagfly Glades. The sky section there just has such a good atmosphere. And my dog's barking. What an odd dog. Anyway, the atmosphere of that thing is so awesome. And while having all the boss battles in cars except for Chaos was a terrible decision. I'm sorry, but it just was. The cars still bring a lot of new, interesting stuff to the game, even though they take away from it a little bit personally, in my opinion. But the cars do not ruin the experience. Even if you take away the cars, the game is still awesome. So much thought was put into it. It's easily the most well-made Skylanders game from an objective standpoint. And it is just a wonderful experience. And if you hate on Superchargers just for the vehicles, then no, stop. Because it's perfect. Maybe not perfect, but still really, 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 really something good. Anyway, on to number 3. Okay, I'm just gonna stop trying to trick you because you know that the first one I click is not gonna be it. SWAT Force is my number 3 pick. I'm just gonna say right now, a big part of this is probably nostalgia because SWAT Force was my first game and I love it to pieces, even though it does have some problems. SWAT Force has one of the better stories, and even though it might not be as gritty or dark as Superchargers, it still doesn't completely it still takes itself seriously enough, unlike Imaginators. I think it's like the perfect midpoint. Not to mention, some of the levels in this game are just like Mudwater Hollow, one of the best levels in the franchise, straight up. But another problem with SWAT Force is the levels are hit or miss. They're either amazing or awful, no in between. Like Boney Islands is just terrible, just flat out terrible. I do not like any part of it. It not good, not good at all. No siree, no ma'am, no way, no how. But the gimmick is awesome, being able to swap Skylanders. And I know I don't use it that much, but I should. It's so cool, and it allows so much flexibility. It makes each of the swappers 10 times more versatile than the regular Skylander. And it really can add a whole nother layer to the game. And just trying out all the swap combinations, seeing which one I thought was the best, was one of my favorite memories of this game. And even though I can understand why some people think it's one of the worst, I really do just love it to pieces. As for every Skylander game, including Imaginators, even though it's my lowest, still love it. Number 2. Skylanders Giants. When I first played through Giants, I thought it was meh at best. But every time after that I played through it, I just loved it more and more and more. And it really is one of the best Skylanders games. It took everything that Spyro's Adventure had going for it and amplified it even more. It was an I don't know why people say that it was a DLC for Spyro's Adventure. It wasn't a DLC. It was an evolution of Spyro's Adventure. It was really good. I mean, the gimmick was a little dull. But, I mean, this was before gimmicks even existed. And, honestly, for a first gimmick, it's not terrible. And the story, while it might have a few points that it's just like, Flint's ship's cursed, that is a pretty big plot device. But nonetheless, the story is still pretty good. And on top of that, the gameplay is just great. Not to mention, I think it has the best difficulty balancing out of them all. Like, easy feels easy, medium feels hard but not so hard it's impossible, hard feels hard, and Nightmare actually is a nightmare. It is, each one of the difficulties is what they say they are. Unlike Trap Team, where Nightmare should be just called Impossible Mode. But Giants just has so much good going for it, and I don't know, and even if that you think that it's a DLC of Spyro's Adventure, that's not a bad thing. Spyro's Adventure was great, and Giants just amplifies it even more. And because they didn't have to worry about the level themes of elements, they were free to unleash their creative ideas upon the world, like Willikin Village, perfection. Aerial Assault, another absolutely unbelievable level. Giants is a true titan among the Skylander games in terms of quality, and I just love it to bits and pieces, and every time I play it, I don't feel bored in the slightest. Even if I'm replaying it for the 100th time. Still amazing. Anyway, I mean, because there's literally only one down there, you know what number 1's gonna be. Trap Team. Trap Team, even though Swap Force was my first game, I have to have the most nostalgia for Trap Team. Literally, in between Trap Team and Superchargers, I played Trap Team. I had to have played it over and over again, more times than I can count. And even though I don't use the trapping gimmick as much anymore, it still is really fun. And while they might have half-baked some of the villains in terms of moveset, still, it really is a fun gimmick, and it might be underused, but that doesn't take away from it. Well, it does, but not significantly. Not to mention the Trap Masters are absolutely insane. All of them are unique and fun, and they just have so much good going for them. Not to mention, Trap Team has to have some of the most creative levels ever. Not to mention, I'm saying not to mention so much in this video. Not to mention the Doom Raiders too. Even though I love Chaos, it was nice to finally have a villain that they could take semi-seriously. The Golden Queen was epic, and each one of the Doom Raiders had something cool going for them. And even though that Dreamcatcher's boss fight was terrible, Dreamcatcher itself as a concept was still a really cool idea for a villain. And each of them were just amazing. Not to mention, Trap Team I cannot stop saying not to mention, can I? In Trap Team, even the cores that were underutilized in comparison to the Trap Masters still had a lot of good inside them. And the story, I think that it's second best after Superchargers. And while it might have rushed up a little in the end, it still is magnificent. And while it is buggy, honestly, unless there's a few game-breaking glitches, but some of the more innocent ones just add on to the funniness in a way that isn't even explainable. And Trap Team is just peak Skylanders, and I love it a ton. Just like I love all of these games. Each one of them has a special place in my heart. And even Imaginators, which I placed number 6, is still a game I love. And I can't stress enough that I don't dislike any of these games. And I still think they're all incredible experiences. But the whole point of ranking them is, putting one over the other, so I kind of had to. But that is my ranking. And all of these games are wonderful. And have brought so many good memories to my brain. And I will never forget them. But that's my ranking. Why don't you tell me yours down in the comment section below? I'm legitimately interested. I just have to know. And thanks for watching. And thank you extremely for all the support I've been getting recently. It blows my mind. Thank you for 200 subs. Have a wonderful evening or morning. Because, time zone's pretty weird.